the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 30th. Right now we have a new tropical storm. It's been labelled 4W. It's the 27th storm of the year so far on day 150 of the year, this year in 2021. So the main threat from that storm is to the Philippines and Palau, which it's very close to right now. We'll have a look shortly. 2 days until Atlantic hurricane season begins, and there's still no areas of interest, which will relieve many of us here at Force 13 HQ at least, that we don't have to do anything for the Atlantic right now. One tropical storm has formed so far though. If you missed it, it was Anna just about a week ago. On day 16 of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season, we have two areas of interest. The western one has dropped in its chances down to 30%. On the eastern side though, a 60% chance for another potential tropical storm to back up Andres. In the Western Pacific, we've got obviously the tropical storm 4W, and that could affect the Philippine Islands, but behind it an 80% chance now over Micronesia, and that's probably going to be the stronger storm. 4W could still get to some significant strength before reaching the Philippine Islands though in the next 3 or 4 days. The North Indian Ocean has no areas of interest right now. There is still a weak disturbance lingering south of the equator in the southern Indian Ocean, which has a small chance of developing. Here's the Atlantic right now, and it's having a few hiccups by the looks of things, so bear with me on that one. It's looking fairly quiet in general, dry air dominating really in quite a few areas, a little bit of more moisture in the central part of the Atlantic in the subtropical zones. The tropical activity is still way down near the equator. The Eastern Pacific also suffering from the not the model issues, but the satellite issues there. You can also see a low pressure system moving away from Hawaii, bringing dry air there in behind it. But looking at the Eastern Pacific systems, not too much forming there just yet, but you can see quite a pronounced thunderstorm on the eastern system. Western Pacific right now looks like this. It's not really, doesn't really do its justice, this particular imagery, but we're going to see those two systems there. They were looking pretty good. South Pacific looking fairly quiet, although there was the potential for a subtropical storm right near the limb of that image on near the bottom right hand side. And the Indian Ocean looks like this, blacking out a little bit there as well. You can see that very disorganized system in the southern Indian Ocean. The northern Indian is thankfully quiet after what we've seen recently. And this is a close-up of what's going on in the Western Pacific right now. There's three pronounced blobs. We're looking at one on either side of the middle one there. The one on the left is 4W, the tropical storm. The one on the right is looking pretty good as well. That's why we're giving it 80%. Probably doesn't have the rotation yet, but it could have the winds. We don't know really. We're waiting for ASCAT, which will happen in the next few hours. In the Eastern Pacific then, looking at sea surface temperatures, of course still warming up. But certainly warm enough for the Eastern Pacific coast there, 30 degrees plus. Gulf of Mexico warm, 28 degrees plus there, especially further south, and 26 to 28 extending up to Louisiana now. And for large parts of the northern Gulf Coast there is really getting up to temperature now. In the Atlantic, open Atlantic off the Bahamas, temperatures starting to rise there as well. The Indian Ocean still a cool trail after cyclone Yas in the last week. So I think we're pretty much done for the first part of the year for the Indian Ocean, fingers crossed. The Pacific, looking at the South China Sea, that's still the hotspot, 30 pushing on 32 degrees. But in the Philippine Sea, where both those systems are, temperatures 29, maybe 30 degrees as it heads further west, particularly in the path of 4W. And looking at sea surface temperature anomalies, you can see how it compares to average. The blues are below average, and reds and yellows, well, yellow is average, the reds are above average. So off the coast of China, very much above average still, a subtropical Pacific. The Atlantic has sort of evened itself out a little bit really. It's looking round about normal, all things considered. May 30th, 1908 had one for the books. A Category 1 hurricane was brushing the outer banks of North Carolina on this day, and then it would move out to sea and start weakening. I don't think we've really seen anything like that so early in the year. Also on this day quite a few other things happened, and all of them have since slipped my mind. There were quite a few other things that were happening in several basins, I believe, but that has now completely escaped me. So that's that. I think Agatha was weakening over the Central American area, and Alberto was dying out over the United States in 2018. So the next name on the Atlantic naming list is Bill, followed by Claudette. We'll wait and see when that happens. In the Eastern Pacific, the next name is Blanca, and it still makes us wonder whether it's going to happen anytime soon. In the Central Pacific, the next name is Hode. In the Western Pacific, on list 4, we're waiting for Choi Wan, followed by Koguma. And in the North Indian Ocean, the next name on the list, if we're unlucky enough to have one anytime soon, is Gulab. In the Southern Hemisphere, time's ticking for the Southwest Indian Ocean before it refreshes its names on July 1st. Kanga is the next name on the list. In the Australian region, the next name is Paddy. In the South Pacific, the next name is Cody on the list. Now, yesterday I was talking about the automated stream being back. Well, it hasn't yet, but we'll get there very soon. But also, tomorrow night, May 31st at 10 PM UTC, that's 6 PM Eastern Time, 2021 Hurricane Season Countdown Show. We're back again. That's what it looked like last year there. We'll see you then.